Yeah, we are live. Hopefully, you guys are excited tonight. If you take a look at the thumbnail that I just posted, it's all about four-speed 4V 351 Cleveland wagons. Now, how often do you get to say that? And that combination, which is, by the way, all kinds of different awesomeness, belongs to my good buddy Evan Smith, who I got to talk to today, and I haven't caught up with him in forever. And he will be joining us tonight, hopefully in the chat. So if you have questions for Evan about this wagon or about anything else, we're talking about all kinds of doing crazy stuff with the wagon, which I'm very excited about because I don't know that I've ever seen a four-speed Cleveland wagon in the flesh. I honestly, thinking back, you think, well, yeah, that combination has to exist, right? But I've never seen one, and I had no idea that you could even get that sort of combination in a wagon. Every wagon that I've seen, and my parents had wagons back in the day, because I can remember riding in the, in the back seat facing out back, and then the fold down seats that had the steel top that you always pinch your finger on. So, it was awesome. And you made sure not to ride around with the window down because all the exhaust would come in. But hey, you're kids and we made it through, right? We made it okay. But again, four-speed Cleveland powered wagon, so it has all kinds of potential. You could do all sorts of stuff. If it's a 4V deal with the good heads on it, you can obviously make a lot of power with those, as we saw from all the testing that I have up on the Boss 351, the Boss 302, even the Cobra Jet Cleveland that I have up there. It already has a ton of head flow. It's kind of like an LS in that way, already has that. So you have that going for you already. There are good intake manifolds available for them. There's even aftermarket Cleveland heads from Trickflow and Edelbrock. So you got all kinds of like Cleveland opportunity here going on. But even just sticking a camshaft in them goes a long way because, you want your wagon to be able to like smoke the tires. And you could build strokers for them. You could build boost. The sky is the limit. And did I mention it's in a wagon? So if you can tell, I'm very excited about it. I do have an affinity for wagons. I think that they're awesome. I got to do a bunch of stuff with Chad and Daphne, may she rest in peace, in their wagon. And it was all kinds of awesome. And she went all around the country and got to drag race it, which was very, very cool. And I got to spend some time with Chad, and we did the TV show Fastest Cars in the wagon, and I helped him get the blower and stuff on there so that he could make a bajillion horsepower and just spin the tires even farther than, because it was hard to kind of put the power down. But Evan and I were talking today about some very cool stuff, and I got to make sure that he's coming on now. So, Cleveland wagon stuff, all kinds of goodness. So we're talking about all kinds of different potential to do with the wagon, which is very cool. And the thing that has come up is that the wagon apparently is in one spot in the country and it needs to be in another spot in the country. So all of that space in between, I just look at as golden opportunity for doing all kinds of fun stuff. Because road trips, first of all, really, I used to go out to the Silver State race all the time. So we drive from here, I would, back then in my 5-liter Mustang. So we get to talk about muscle Mustangs and fast forward days with Campy and Evan, hopefully. And part of some of the really cool stuff about going out there and doing that race is actually the trip out there, because it was a long trip out there. And for instance, when I first started doing my Mustang, we took all the exhaust off of it. I just had the headers and then pipes and then 45-degree bends with the exhaust exiting out right in front of the back tires. Like you do on a GT350R Shelby, because that's the way you would do it, right? The thing is, that's really fun when you're on track, like Willow Springs, or you're racing around and you're on a closed track. But when you got to drive from Southern California to Vegas and then to the far edge of Nevada, actually, I don't say the far edge of Nevada, it's all the way to another state. It's to Utah. Well, not to Utah. That would actually be Bonneville, and I've gone there quite a few times. But to the middle of Nevada, to Ely and London, Hiko, in that area, you have to do that. And as you might imagine, especially with the race going on and them watching all of the people driving out, there's lots of highway patrol. So you have to go into whisper mode when you're driving on the road. But I should have just kept all the stuff on, because I'm not sure that the open exhaust with an otherwise kind of stock. Back then when I first started, I had a K&N drop-in filter and more timing and the normal things that you do when we were first starting out. But you had to have a loud exhaust, because that was that was the coolest thing. But it's the road trip stuff that like you remember more than anything. I went with my good buddy Jimmy Hiddle, and we took a road trip. I took it from Southern California, and then I met him in Roswell, New Mexico, and he had a trailer, and so we took my little Chevy Sprint and drove it back to Maxton, North Carolina, which is basically the far edge of the East Coast. And so we took the little Chevy Sprint back there to run at the Maxton Mile because we wanted to try to set some land speed records. And so we did a bunch of chassis dyno testing, but and we were successful. We set a couple, and then the clutch started slipping. But that's not really the story. The story is all the stuff that happened in between about the places we stayed and the people that we met and the adventures. And the same thing when I went World Challenge Racing is that we had all of these adventures with the truck breaking down, tossing a drive shaft, dropping one of the ramps for the trailer, knocking the rear tailgate. I mean, just, you name it. And the adventures like ensued. And we remember that stuff. And I talked to my buddy Bernie, who helped me go out and was crew chief for the my race program. And I mean, race program's kind of in air quotes in that, but it's all of the stuff that happened during that. So that's why hopefully Evan will come on and we'll be able to talk. There's Rev and Evan. What's up? So we'll be able to talk about maybe doing a road trip together, which I haven't seen Evan and Campy in forever. And so it would be very cool to get together with those guys because I did a lot of stuff for them. And most of it was remote. I mean, they were back in New Jersey where they have all the magic tracks that, everybody goes really fast on. And I was out here in California and in Vegas too, but on the West Coast. So we would get to see them for, sometimes for some of the events, especially like SEMA and those kinds of things. But I haven't got together with them for a long time. So it'd be very, very cool. Revan can't get Discord to work, so don't worry about it. We're not hooking that up anyway for right now. I didn't think we could get all of that to work, and I don't want to start that for the first time, right now. So you guys, Evan's in the house. If you have questions of Muscle Mustangs and Fast Forwards, talk to him about Muscle Car Campy's in the house. Yeah, if you guys have not gone on, and this will be for all of the people that are going to be watching the video after this is over too. Make sure you go check out CAMPISANO's YouTube channel. It's called Muscle Car Campy. Jim is a national treasure. He's awesome. And he tests a lot of like cool things and gets to drive a lot of very cool things. Jim, welcome. I'm glad you guys showed up. That's awesome. I have some questions for Evan. Actually, I get this question all the time. We talked about this a little bit. Casey, my first car was a 71 LTD wagon with a 429. Nice. And a C6. Very awesome. But one of the things people have been asking me a lot about every time I post something up on YouTube with dyno testing invariably is what it is. They always want to know, well, have you done anything on a 7.3 Godzilla motor? So if you guys have questions on the Godzilla motor, Evan's your guy because he's out there doing stuff with Brian. And I don't know that I've actually met Brian in person, but obviously I followed all the stuff that he was doing back when he was drag racing back in the Muscle Mustangs days, back in the 5-liter Ford Frenzy stuff that was going on. And he seems like an awesome guy, and I'm sure Evan will tell you that. But they've done a lot of very cool things with the with that modern Ford power plant, the 7.3-liter Godzilla deal. And they've run very cool NA testing, very cool boosted stuff. That motor is big, it has good head flow. They have cams for them. Now the guys obviously have intake manifolds for them. So when you combine all of that stuff and then you add boost to it, there's no reason you can't make like a bajillion horsepower with it. So did you say National Treasure? I meant the movie National Treasure, Jim, not an actual National Treasure. I would never say that about you. Oh. Now I get to have adventures with you virtually. That's right. That's right. ProCharge Mopar. Why is a 351 Cleveland so bad? It's not. The 351 Cleveland is awesome. Yeah, Evan. So if you guys want Godzilla videos, take a look at his channel at Revan Evans deal on his YouTube channel. Take a look at that because they have lots of Godzilla stuff up there. So if you're lacking in your Godzilla like video usage, make sure to go check that out because there is a lot of cool stuff. And I think that's really neat. I like that I don't always get to do a lot of the brand new stuff. Like I haven't even run a Gen 3 Coyote yet, which I which I would like to do. I was lucky enough to get a Gen 1 way back. I mean, I got that in like I think we were actually testing it in 2010. And I remember posting that and telling people, yeah, I ran a 2010 Coyote. They're like, no, Richard, you didn't, because that didn't come out until 2011, the Mustang. I'm like, yeah, it didn't. But they had the engine before that. And I had the engine before that because I'm somebody. But that was 10 years ago. And now I'm not somebody anymore. But I don't always get to test the newest stuff. And so the Godzilla deal is really cool. And a modern Coyote is, they've evolved over the years. So I thought the Coyote was really impressive. I mean, the specific torque output once we modified it with the variable cam and the intake and ported heads and that kind of stuff, it was really impressive given its displacement, how much torque it made. And it did really good on average torque production too. Again, credit the variable cam timing. And I think we see some similar things with the variable cam timing in the LT motors in those versions, and probably would see that in the Gen 4 LS stuff too, although I just haven't done enough testing with that to find out, because when we run stuff on the engine dyno, I always run it with a Holly, and we don't even do variable cam timing. But when I was back with Brian Tooley running that stuff, we did get to see a lot of Gen 5 stuff in there, and James Short back there has got a handle on, they can run the variable cam timing with the LT stuff. So it's really nice. And they can also do the Gen 4 stuff. So I'm going to go back there and do some of that LS stuff with Brian, and we'll get to show what those things will do, because making lots of average power and even low speed power with variable cam timing it makes it a lot easier. And that's why I like the Coyote so much. So let's see, Evan, you have a ton of Godzilla stuff. So my question for Evan, let's see, we're also building a 1968 Mercury Cyclone, which is very, very cool. Oh, with a Godzilla and a Tremec. Nice. That's going to be a really cool combination. See, Evan gets to do all the stuff, because that's what you get when you're the when you're the editor of the magazine. People just throw stuff at you because you're really somebody important. And in my discussion today with Evan, he just goes like, you never got to see any of this stuff because you were always left in the dungeon. So I was basically like Cinderella, but I never actually even got to go to the ball. I just had to stay home and clean everything and shackle me to the dyno and to the, to all of the junkyards and stuff. But that's really cool. I do like the Cyclones. I think that they're awesome. And a Tremec and a Godzilla would be kind of a good combination. My question for Evan is, what have you done to the wagon so far? I know that you guys bought it. Have you driven it? How does it feel? Have you guys run it on the chassis dyno? And what year is it? And what actual model is it, so that we know? I was waiting for Campy to say this. I was actually going to resurrect that thing and bring it to him, take him for a ride in it. How is the 200-mile-an-hour project car coming? When can I drive it? That's an inside joke with Jim and I, because I was going to do this project for him with my Mustang, which I still have, by the way. So it's still officially going, but it has not had the motor in it to go 200 yet, but it really needs to. I was so excited about it doing all the Silver State stuff. And then it kind of just fell by the wayside. And then when you left, I thought, okay, there's no reason to do this anymore, because, but then Evan was there, and I thought, yeah, there's probably still a reason to do that. But maybe I'll wait till he gets a wagon with a Cleveland in it. So now it's officially, I guess I have to get started on it, right? Evan, it's a 1971 Mercury Montego MX, original 351 Cleveland 2V. Oh, converted to a 4-speed and a 4-barrel. Okay, that's even cool. I mean, if you convert your wagon, that's awesome. Would they have ever come with a 4-speed? Scuba Steve, how reliable are the AccuSub systems with electronic pressure sensor? All of the ones that we've used, I don't think had electronic pressure sensors in them. I think that ours were mechanical. It's been a long time since I used one, obviously. Let's see. Okay, Evan, so far I've driven it and sadly had to leave it in Michigan. Let's go get it and drive it back. See, that's what I'm talking about. So it needs to go. It drives great and has 70 pounds of oil pressure. That sounds like a win right there. So it's Evan, it's in Michigan. And then where does it need to go to? So we have an idea of the scope of the road trip that we're talking about. And right now in Michigan, I'm sure it's sunny and 70 degrees, right? a bear would get the Fox to go 200. Yeah, getting the Fox to go 200 would be very, very easy. We were just going to use a 302 or a 347 or 408 or all kinds of different motors that were talked about. Revin, a 3-speed manual was standard on the base Montego. Not sure on the 4-speed. I can't find another 71 Montego wagon anywhere. Yeah, I think that they would be kind of rare. Oh, Evan, so it needs to go. So you guys get an idea of how cool the adventure would be. We need to go from sunny Michigan in the dead of winter down to Florida, which Florida should be a lot better than Michigan. I think there's a lot of daylight in between those two. And on an unknown vehicle of 1971 vintage, which you never know what's going to happen and how long it's going to work, but would be awesome. Yeah, we could do our own. Yeah, we could do our own road show, which would be awesome because there's always going to be adventures. And all right, Campy's in for the road trip. That's what I like to hear. So we all need to fly out to Detroit, which we could go out and do a bunch of videos out in Detroit because I don't know if I've been through Detroit on my way to go race up in Canada, but we didn't stop anywhere. I don't think I've ever raced in Detroit. Street course that I ran, that was in Dallas. I've never run a street course in Detroit. That would be kind of cool because I've never been there. So we could do lots of cool stories while we're there and then, prep and do a road trip. And I'm always up for beef jerky and White Hostess donuts, from the local truck stop or gas station. That's road trip food. James, what makes up a Cleveland? Well, a Cleveland is a dedicated engine family. So it has a specific deck height block, which is different than a Windsor. It has a different cylinder head. It has a different distributor. It has a different camshaft. All of that stuff are specific to the Cleveland. They had 2V versions, which are smaller heads. And then they had 4V versions, which are the big heads that came on the performance deals like a Boss 351 or Boss 302, or if this one is has 4V heads on it, that would be nice. Oh, it's going to be 60 tomorrow in Toledo, Ohio. Nice. Yeah, I told you it was nice and warm up there. So what's bad about the M code? I don't think the M code motor that I tested was fine. So Rev and Detroit trip, Henry Ford Museum, nice, which I've never been to. Brian Wolf dyno test, that would be great to do stuff with Brian because he does a lot of great stuff. Ford stuff, beef jerky, yes, unlimited, and drive home. So that sounds like a win right there, right? In Detroit, they call the hot dogs conies. Okay, is that like Coney Island then? Danger Will Robinson. So I made it from Amarillo to Roswell in a 74 Blazer. Nice. That lived in a river for years. That's like the Nova that I have. Only had to replace one front wheel bearing. The Montego will make it. Yeah, I think, you find out because a car that old, you don't have any idea, like, is the drive shaft balance? Has the drive shaft, have any of the U-joints been lubricated at any time? What's going on in the rear end? What's, is the diff fluid, like, has it ever been changed? What's going on with the axle bearings, wheel bearings, as you mentioned, brakes, any sort of hose or belt? That's a 71. So that's going to have all kinds of 15 different belt assemblies on it and stuff. Is the alternator bearings, are those going to go out? The water pump, cracked hoses. Luckily we don't have to worry about fuel injection and wiring harnesses and O2 sensors and leaky exhaust, that kind of stuff. Because if the exhaust leaks on a carbureted motor, then it just leaks. Stopping at Gus's world famous fried chicken in Knoxville. See, it would be cool to plan stops from Detroit to Florida because there's a lot of stuff in between that could be very cool. One of the things that I thought was very cool when we went through Detroit on our way, I think we were going to Moseport up in Canada, and on our way through there, we drove through Tornado Alley, and there was a tornado warning when we stopped at one of the diners, and we're like, this looks like a really kind of tornado weather because it was dark and eerie, and it looks like every movie that you see where a tornado is about to start. And we're like, this is really cool, because we drove through here so we could see a tornado. They're like, you want to see a tornado? I said, yeah. I came all over in California. They're like, oh my God, you live in California. What about those earthquakes? I said, You're comparing a tornado to an earthquake? An earthquake shakes a little bit, and that's it, and then it's over. A tornado picks up houses. That's way different. I know some of the earthquakes, like the Norwalk one was really bad, but and some of them can be bad, but not usually. Tornadoes happen every year and consistently destroy. Apparently, just they have a personal vendetta against trailer parks for some reason. But I kind of wanted to see one. I wanted to see one at a distance, but it sure looked like we were going to. But we ended up driving through and just getting into a snowstorm and all that. And the hardest thing was because we drove 2 days straight, basically in our truck, which had a 200-mile range, because we had 2 tanks on it, because it was only getting 4 or 5 miles to the gallon. And we even put a bunch of spare cans in it that we use for our race car. We filled those just in case we were in the middle of nowhere. And that's the same truck that we overheated the trans and blew the drive shaft out of it and lost a trailer. And, all kinds of fun stuff. But you just never know. You don't know what's going to happen. And that's kind of the adventure, right? I mean, we all have to do that. Admiral, do you guys do a lot with coyote stuff? So Evan, so I probably want to know for you. I have driving footage on my channel so you can see it and grab a gear too. How does the trans feel? Does it feel good? And what is it? Is it a top loader 4-speed? What is it in that thing? Scuba Steve, what kind of power do you think you could create from a 66 427 Shelby Cobra? Well, there are lots of power mods that you can do to a 427 side oiler, which is what that would have come with, or some of the street stuff came with 428s. But those FE motors, you can make strokers out of them. They have aluminum blocks. They have really good aluminum heads. They have all kinds of good stuff for those motors. I did some stuff with Robert Pond way back, and he's done a lot of, and I think Barry Robotnik probably does the FE stuff also. They can make a lot of power. And then when you add boost on top of that, kind of the sky is the limit. National Lampoon Vacation. Must have jumped that thing 50 yards. That's nothing to be proud of, Rusty. 50 yards. Nothing like taking a road trip in an old muscle car. Yes, I agree. We drove a 77 Camaro down to the La Carrera race in Mexico, which was awesome. Yeah, you can make lots of power, Casey, with that motor in a Cobra. That's not actually a car that you want to go fast in, unless you put it in a Daytona coupe, which does very well, or Dick Smith and those guys, I think, would put the hard top on that with a raked back so that you don't have a really ridiculous low pressure area that wants to lift the back of the car up. Yeah, Evan, I agree. Robert Pond did some stuff with Westech, and he brought some aluminum stroker versions of side oilers that made really good power. Speed Maverick Garage. I had a 73 351 Boss 11-to-1 motor, 4-speed, and a Gran Torino Sport, former Ford executive car. 11-to-1 Boss was not available as a factory option in 73. But the build sheet, yeah, they had it. They still had 11-to-1 in 71 because that's when the Boss 351 was. But after that, they chopped the compression out of it. Do you know if anybody that's dealt with tall deck coyotes? No. Are you talking about aftermarket blocks? I did look at the block that Mahovitz did with, I think is it the guys from, who did he do that motor with? He did it with another like Hemi guy, not Batten, somebody like that. And the block is just amazing. It's a billet block. Ever had an experience with the overhead conversions on small block Fords or small block Chevys or FEs? The only ones I've seen, what's his name? Oh, who did all of those? Tom used to work for him, and he does stuff out at Bonneville. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. I think he put the 928 heads on the big block. He did 4-valve heads on a flathead. They were Subaru heads. I'll think of his name. Steve and Chad and I drove a 69 Camaro on Rocky Mountain Race Week. Nice. After thrashing it together, that car needed a lot of work and driving around the block once before loading it up. Yeah, you got to take the quick drive around the block to figure out how it's going to work, right? Who makes the best MLS head gasket? I don't think you're going to see a big, in my opinion, people that are looking for differences in MLS head gaskets are the problem is somewhere else, because the strength of the MLS head gasket, all of them, whether it's Velpro or Chromatic, those guys, I think that they all make good ones. Keto, how can I be sure of the crankshaft stroke without removing it? You can, if you can get a screwdriver in there, you can measure the stroke. You can just move it from bottom dead center to top dead center and figure out what the distance is. If you have the pan off, it's really easy. You just measure it from the bottom. Aaron, you ran a 400M. What kind of power numbers did you put down? Well, take a look at the video. You shouldn't have to ask me. I think we ended up making, I don't remember now. I think it was less than 600. I think it was 560 or something like that. We made a front spoiler that allows us to reach 180 miles an hour on runway 1 at McCarran. Big anniversary they had in 2001. Yeah, I would imagine it would be. That's not a 420 or Cobra was really designed to accelerate, and so they were really good on, which is why they ended up building the. If that's what you're talking about, Casey, that's why Pete Brock did the design for the Cobra Daytona, because they had lots of power and they had lots of acceleration, and they could beat the Ferraris on short tracks because they had big tires and they had a big motor and they had lots of power. What they didn't have, the car was not aerodynamic. So especially like at Le Mans, a GTO Ferrari would go faster than a Cobra, even though it had probably 200 less horsepower, but it was more aerodynamic, which is why they did the cam tail Daytona. And then with the small block and the Cobra, the Daytona, then they could run speeds that were equivalent or better than the Ferraris of the time. Hobbyist, hello. Do you lap valves so they don't leak fluid? Ideally, yeah, they don't leak anymore if you lap them. Yeah, the Shelby Daytona Coupe muscle car company. Oh, Campy. Yes, the Shelby Daytona Coupe was awesome. And there is no car that I've seen at SEMA that I was more excited about than when they found that very first the Daytona Coupe, the first one that Pete Brock did, and the one that they went out and ran the races in, the one that everything else was modeled after. And that's also the car that they went out and set all the FIA records out at Bonneville and got rust all over it. And then they just put it over somewhere, and because it's last year's race car, and they found that car. And so in my opinion, that would probably be the most valuable Shelby car ever made, because it's the Daytona Coupe. And when I remember I was with my buddy Bernie, he's like, dude, you got to come see this. I'm like, what is it? Is it another car that has neon lights and stuff on it like at SEMA? He's like, no, look at that. And we sat there I bet we sat there around that car for 2 hours, just telling all the stories of the things that we had read and walking around and looking at it and going, ooh, look how cool that is. And it was one of the things. It's one of the cars that speaks to me. The pistons have no markings on them, but they're forged and have a dome. How can I measure it? Well, you could do it with displacement, or you could kind of estimate it. Does Wagon make an adapter plates for my 400M with a Cleveland Offie 4V intake and Cleveland 4V heads? No, Price Motorsports make one. Does anybody else? I'm not familiar with them. Mike, I think the guys that did I think the guys from MPG made my adapter plates that we ran the Cleveland intake manifolds on the 400M, but they were just big, thick plates of aluminum. Yes, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Yeah, I got a muscle car Campy. Pete Brock designed the original Corvette Stingray racer and the Daytona Coupe. I didn't know about the Stingray. And the other guy I like is obviously Shinoda, because I'm a big fan of the Boss 302. But I have a really funny Pete Brock story, and that's that my friend Bernie and I were out at the Silver State, and we were walking around, and somebody was talking to somebody named Pete Brock, and Bernie's like, "Is that Pete Brock? Pete Brock?" And I'm like, "No, that's the car magazine guy, Pete Brock. That's not Pete Brock, like the guy that we know, the guy that we worship. That's just a magazine guy." Well, as it turns out, it was the Pete Brock. So I had just disrespected Pete Brock. And, you know, if he's ever listening, I forever apologize. I didn't ever say it to him. You know, I said it behind his back. My mom raised me right. But later on, Bernie would be racing at Daytona because he's a crew chief. So he's either at Daytona or Le Mans or somewhere. And he actually got to hang out and talk to Pete. And he said, like, "Dude, we were going to come over and give you like 20 we're not worthies because," and then my friend Richard told me that you were just a car guy. You were just magazine guy, Pete Brock. So he threw me under the bus a little bit, but I totally deserved it. Scuba Steve, you can put a different sensor on there. Did you see what we did to the? Did you see what I did to the distributor in the 2.2 liter Chrysler turbo motor? I just took the distributor, cut a big hole in it, basically made an adapter plate, and we put an LS. I think it's an LS cam sensor in it, and so it was I think it was a 4X. On the 4-cylinder distributor, and so I just positioned it so it was the right distance and the right height, and we basically just made our own sensor so that we could run that 2.2 with an LS harness and the Holley HP management system. Yeah, Casey, the first Cobra would be worth a lot of money too. It was originally a 260 and then a 289. Yes, Reverend Evans in the house. Oh, Race Gas Smells Good is on. Cool. He has some great Ford content. I always love me some good Ford content. Stock Cleveland 4V CJ had 206, 221 cam, 480 to 490 lift. I have all the specs on the Cobra Jet version that we ran, which was like a 300 horsepower version. I think mine was a 1970, if I remember right. And then the camshaft that we used, because that was a hydraulic flat tappet cam. And then the Boss 351 was a solid flat tappet cam. And then I have the specs up there on that as well. And the guys from Holman and Moody, which again, I thought was awesome to be talking to the guys from Holman and Moody, like, you know, Ford GT kind of Holman and Moody and stock car and all that famous stuff. And they helped me out by sending me, when I was doing the Boss 302, they loaned me one of their intake manifolds, which I thought was awesome. They don't know me. They, you know, nobody knows me, but they sent it out and I was able to run it and send it back, because those kinds of things, the intake manifolds, and especially the carburetors, I couldn't run a carburetor for the Boss 351 because those are between $3,000 and $5,000 now for a carburetor. It's ridiculous. I remember the guys from Pony Carbs offered to send me like an original redone Holley 780 for the DZ302, and they sent it out so that I could run it. And we opened it up in the box and then just folded it back up and I sent it back to them. We may have tried it, but I was very, very careful. I think we wore gloves when we did it because I didn't want to, like the carburetors that we have, the shelf carburetors that we have, they're in the cabinet at Westech. We just take them out and throw them on, put them on, hook them up. Like this one was, you know, was worth more money than I was. So we didn't want to hurt it. Do you like gear drives? I'd rather have the blower because then I want the noise and the boost. Oh, Evan, you got to drive Cobra number 23, a 63 260 car. Nice. Converted to a 289, which is fairly common because as soon as they came out with the better motor, then guys wanted to upgrade. Ooh, a week later, it sold for 850 grand. Nice. That's more money than I make in a week. So Terry, you want a factory 5 Daytona coupe with a Tremec trans and a slant 6. It's going to be a good combination. Race gas. I've read Richard's content. So you're the one guy that's reading my stuff. That's awesome. I know I'm jealous that Evan got to drive that car. Oh, Justin. Oh, why didn't you say, man? Justin's awesome. The gang's all here. Justin, that's a good question. I'm sure that, excuse me, I'm sure Evan and Campy will have driven way cooler cars than I have. I can't think of, I actually owned a Ford GT, so an 06, which I thought for a Ford, that's a pretty good one. I got to ride in a, let's see, I think that one of them was a Q code and one of them was an R code. One was a Galaxy, I think. And I also got to ride in a Thunderbolt, which I thought was really cool. I didn't get to drive them, but the guy that I was there with had a Cobra and he had a Thunderbolt and he had a Galaxy and he had lots of these really cool specialized kind of Ford cars. I did get to sit in a Porsche 962, which I thought was like super awesome, and also in the Goldenrod when that was at West Tech. Muscle Car Campy, did you ever test a Cross Boss? I did. I didn't test it. There was a guy running one who builds a lot of very nice reproduction motors, and he had a Cross Boss on a small block Ford, and it worked amazingly well. It made a lot of power, and it worked fantastic. I actually got to test and there was a guy that restores them, and he brought that over because I had a 327. I made the L76 365 horse 327 replica motor that I did, and then he brought over factory fuel injection, which made it an L84, and we ran it with a factory fuel injection. And it was a little bit of work to get it to actually cooperate, but yeah, that Autolite carburetor was awesome. Snafu, do you think that the 302 with the 154 firing order would sound different than a 302 with the 137? I think it would. It would be interesting. I mean, I don't know how you'd have to do that almost subjectively to find out what what sounds better. And actually in the car with exhaust driving around from the outside and from the inside would be the right way to do that. A lot of times on the dyno, even when we're running exhaust, unless we have a bone stock motor and a complete exhaust where the thing is like whisper quiet, it's hard to really tell. They're either loud or they're not. And out on the street and on the road and in the car and stuff, you can really kind of tell how cool the car sounds or that it doesn't. Justin, you're in NorCal? Keto, who'd be interested instead of 66 Stingray 427 heads? Are they like an L72 head? And are they like not ported and unmolested? The guy at West Tech is a big mid-year big block Corvette guy, so he might be. He actually has a set of in the box original L88 heads, which I'm sure worth $1 million. Can you make a short stroke Hemi screamer? I don't know I'd have to look and see what other crankshafts are available for those. I don't know why you would. It's going to turn out the same way that the LS short stroke deal running the 4.8 crank and the big bore block. You could do that on a Hemi too, but the results are going to be the same. It's just going to make less power. I mean, they do sound cool when you rev them up that far, but it just makes a lot less power than the bigger motor does. Jason, longtime Muscle Mustangs reader, and I was too before I started writing for them. And then I lost all respect when I started writing for them because anybody that would let me write for them, obviously, they're going downhill. Where is the list of parts that you have available? I don't have a list. Send me an email though, and if you tell me what you're looking for, I have a couple of cams and stuff. Scuba Steve, excuse me. Scuba Steve, what do you think of RC injectors? I knew Russ really well and used RC stuff for years and years and years. And everything that I've run from them has been great. I haven't used them for a lot of years, so I don't know. I can't tell you about now, but back in the day, we used them on all the Honda stuff and lots of different things. Ooh, muscle car campy. I drove the Richard Petty Grand Prix that he flipped at Daytona. Also some SVT prototype Mustangs. You guys got to drive the didn't you guys get to drive the V10 Mustangs and the Cobra R stuff and a lot of the different prototypes? Okay, Revan Evan 1966 427 R code Fairlane. Okay. Jack Roush's Boss 429. See, now he's just showing off. Prototype Cobra Jet. Let's see, Jim Campisano's 65 Dodge. Is it a Corvette? I got to drive a 65 Stingray with a big 327 and a big 327. Are there different size 327s? Yeah, I don't have the Ford GT anymore. I sold all of my exotic cars. The really cool crossbox manifolds were the ones with the dual inline 4 barrels on them. Although I don't know how well they worked. Ooh, an original Sox and Martin 68 Cuda. That would be awesome. Was it it was a Hemi, right, Evan? Karen, my wife wants a CTS-V wagon. Those are nice. I always like the Mercedes-Benz versions, like the hot rod versions that they made also as wagons, which are, you know, is kind of great. Evan loves the 5-liter with Flowmasters and the click of the T5 shifter in neutral. So I got a question for you, Evan. You did a lot of drag racing on 5 liters because you had Project Stalker and you were at the track all the time testing stuff when you guys were back on the East Coast. Did you ever break shifters in a 5-liter T5? High compression motors make a lot of noise, and ones with a lot of exhaust duration are also very noisy. Tara, there's no dumb questions, even about a Jeep Chrysler 3.8. How much boost will a 500 horsepower 460 with twin GT45s need to make 1,000 horse? That's easy math, Mike. You got that. Justin, this is a good question. I've asked people and I've gotten different answers about that. So his question is a random question I was pondering today. Richard, do you know why the Gen 2 and 3 Coyote truck motors, so the 5-liter motors that are in the F-150s and F-250s, have a different firing order than the Mustang version? I've been told that they don't. I've also been told that they do. So I think that they do. I think that people have told me that they do. But I would imagine that it's got to be NVH, I would imagine. And I don't think that they would do it for. There's not going to be a torque difference or anything. Normally, when we've done firing order swaps on things like big block Chevys and small block Chevys, we never see any change in power really. So I don't think it's that. I know that in talking to some of the OEM guys, they've changed these firing orders to get rid of or isolate second and third order vibrations in the rotating assembly, and sometimes it's not even just for NVH, it's for like engine longevity, but I don't know about in the truck. Oh, Justin, man, you're right up the road. Campy, I can't believe that. Yeah, Jim Campisano's remark is, Richard, we had almost 300 pages to fill each month in Muscle Mustangs and Fast Forwards in its heyday. We were like the Salvation Army. Nice. That's definitely me. Pretty much everyone got in. Wow. Nothing but love. But yeah, we had to, I mean, I got so many calls from Jim. Hey, They just increased the page count. I need like 5 or 6 more tech stories. Okay, I'll get right on it. That was those were good times. Yes, definitely, Justin. That would be awesome. Grab coffee. My coffee might look like a raspberry lemon drop or something, but that would be okay. We can call it coffee. So Evan, you got to drive the V10 and all the Cobras. Nice. I did get to drive the 93 Cobra R's, which was kind of fun, but it's not really a lot different than the Cobra version. It just was louder and, you know, made more noise. Deep Blue, I had a set of 72 2V heads, put on 74 V heads, and had more low end. That's actually one of the tests that I want to do. Evan, since you have a Cleveland, guys have been after me all the time to do a 2V versus 4V head test on the same motor, because some other people have run a test and they said, oh no, the 2V makes more power than the 4V, you know, because everyone says, oh, the 2V's got to make more low speed power because it has small ports. I don't find that to be the case. When I've done the test, like on the Boss 302 versus the DZ 302, now they had a big difference in camshaft and port volume and stuff, but I don't see that. I mean, and if you look at an LS3, it has a lot of low speed power. It's a really big port. So I don't agree with that until I actually see it. I want to do a real back-to-back test with the same compression, 2V, 4V, and we'll keep the same camshaft in it, and we'll try to equalize the intake manifold, maybe run an RPM air gap or something on both of them so that we know what they do. And it would be an interesting test so that we could finally, like, because in the reason, one of the things I was very happy with when I did all of these reproduction muscle car motors is when I did the Boss 302, everyone I talked to said the same thing. Oh, Boss 302, those ports are way too big. It's just terrible down low. It's not. In a lot of places, it made more low speed power than the DZ 302 did with tiny ports. The DZ 302 had a really big camshaft in it. But this internet level of logic has carried over into a lot of stuff. Now, I'd rather have a 351 because the 351 Boss 351 makes more power than a Boss 302 everywhere. And so, you know, having more torque, it's just like the LT1 350 compared to the 327 or the DZ 302. It just makes more power everywhere. So it has a lot more average power. It's going to spin the tires. It's going to accelerate better. It's going to do everything better because it's a bigger motor. That's what they do. And having a big port on it with a bigger motor, obviously going to be a better combination. But I was really surprised at how well the Boss 302 did with those gigantic ports on a relatively small motor. Casey, do you remember the Honda V8 Nitro drag bike? Yeah, Russ was an animal on drag bike racing. Campy, I put more than 2,000 miles on the Cobra R's. More than just about any owner, probably. And of course, the 65 Dodge is a Coronet. Nice, 5001. We drove I got to drive the Cobra R a lot because we drove it out to see the guys from Bear Racing and drove it around and did a bunch of stuff with it. It was a fun car. And I wish that all of the 5-liter Mustangs, before they stopped producing them, would have come with the Cobra motor. I think that would have been cool. And if they had the Cobra stuff with a 351, I think that would have been awesome in a Mustang. Let's see. Gunther, you didn't miss anything. You know, Evan mentioned that the 464 valve Cobra with Flowmasters has an epic sound. I really like the Terminator motors with a good exhaust on them. I remember running on the various road courses with them, and those things sounded really, really mean. Casting numbers at 858. I think they're L72s. I'll have to check. I'm sure it has bigger valves than the factory. So you went from a 219 to a 225, which probably would be a common upgrade. Oh, Campy. So you drove a Fuelie Corvette that they put a smaller camshaft in. Nice. Taco wants to know what cleaning chemical is best for cleaning and soaking and decarboning. I think a lot of people use Easy Off. for that stuff to clean the chambers and stuff. Oh, Evan, you broke shifters 3 times. And I've sent 75s to their death. Was it third gear that you broke by any chance? So, Eric, you found Evan through Uncle Tony. Yeah, they're buddies. And diesel, gasoline, Marvel, Mystery Oil, Berryman's, CLR. Campy. Evan Smith was a T5 bandit. His wanted poster was in every Ford service department in the Northeast at one time. So he was the guy. Huh? Don't let this guy drive. Saul, you may laugh, but I'll ask anyway. What's wrong with lugging the motor? You shouldn't do that. It doesn't want to. It doesn't want to run wide open throttle at 1500 RPM. It's a good way to detonate the motor. Eric, you still talk with Tony? Or if that's directed at me, I've tried, and he got mad when we did the piston flip thing. But I got something coming up that I'm going to challenge Uncle Tony, and that should be fun. What's your bucket list dream car engine trans combo? If that's directed at me, I would like to have a McLaren F1. Tara, I didn't see your original question, so. .57 Hemi heads are a lot like Cleveland 4V heads. Yeah, I think that they're a bit more efficient in size versus flow though than a Cleveland head is. The Aussie 3V heads are also good because, and I ran some of the CHI heads, which those worked very well. Ooh, Cobra 427. I took close-up pictures of a Boss 494 all alloy. That's pretty rare. Can-Am motor, nice. Motor that Packard Ford book author says was rare in the 70s. He just had a friend shed in New Zealand. That is very rare because the who was it? Reynolds Aluminum, I think, were the guys that were doing the big block Chevys, and they were that Chevy was using in the who were the it's McLaren and Denny Hume were running the Chevy stuff, and they were winning a lot of stuff until Porsche showed up with the 91730, the 91710, and then the 91730. Tim, you cut 2 Autolite 2100s in half and JB welded them together. Okay, Justin, you're doing some copy editing for Evan. Nice. Thanks for stopping by, man. But hit me up. We'll definitely get together. An early 427, like a 66 head, is going to be closed chamber. The Lightnings did sound cool. You could hear a lot of the supercharger in those. The Terminator is just a 5-liter 4.6. It's not a 5-liter. It's just a 4.6 with a blower on it. Tom's in the house. What year standard Mustang GT with 4.6s are the best for making power with minimal upgrades? Well, if it's a 4.6 2-valve, you'll want a PI. And so that will be 99 and up. Scuba Steve, I have seen stuff done with the 928 Porsche engines. There were guys running out the Silver State, Mark and Karen or Mark and Sharon. They brought a 928 out that had a stroker version of that motor that had ported heads and all kinds of cool stuff done to it. That car is very, very fast. Richard, have you ever thought using a generic tube chassis that can accommodate any engine and trans combo? We were talking about that a little bit, having something that we could just stick in and chassis dyno it, but it just didn't make any sense to do that, and rather than just use the engine dyno. Have you experimented with equal firing order headers? No, I haven't run those on the engine dyno. A lot of times the engine dyno doesn't lend itself to that. The other one I want to test is the 8-into-1, which we see a lot on the sand cars and stuff that come in for the chassis dyno side. It's hard to configure on the engine dyno though. What turbo sides would you use for a Big Bang on the 3800 Series 2? It depends on what kind of power you want, but for the Big Bang, we're going to have to go with something that's going to be probably in between a GT45 and 78, 75. I'm thinking the VS Racing turbo would be good for that. Yeah, Evan gets to hang out with all the people like Jack Roush and stuff. That's awesome. Oh, Mike, a 1963 Biscayne Wagon 4.8 GT45 single turbo. That's going to be a lot of fun. I've never boosted a 3.8-liter Jeep motor, but you can put a turbo on anything. I've never been on Power Tour. Evan, are you going to be at PRI? Oh, I guess you are. Yep. I run too many different motors to configure one up for a chassis dyno deal, because look at all of the different bell housings and stuff that I have to run. It'd be a lot. Have you put modular 5.4 heads on a 4.6? They're the same head. If you take a 2-valve off a 4.6, it's the same head as off of a 5.4. It's just farther away because of the deck height, and then you have a different intake manifold, but the head is the same. Campy, I probably will not be at PRI. Challenger V6s are the same as the GP6s, and they boost them all the time. Any doesn't matter what motor you have, any motor you can put boost on, and they will work. And then what people do is then modify it for whatever the shortcoming of that particular motor is. Maybe they need head studs. Maybe they need a better head gasket, like the Cadillac. Maybe they all need ring gap. Maybe you need to port the head, like the 3800. You don't have to have that, but it always helps. Lots of them, most of them need camshafts. Maybe you want to put a different intake manifold on it. All of that stuff works. And some of them even would benefit from having something other than the factory exhaust manifolds. Although almost anything modern, an LS, an LT, a modular Ford, something past a 5-liter Ford. Unfortunately, those exhaust manifolds will work, and we've run them with turbos. Evan did a cool thing with, I think, the stock exhaust manifolds and a couple of like SVO or T-Bird turbos. So Evan, you can chime in here if I remember right, and ran that essentially DIY twin turbo deal, and with the stock exhaust manifolds, and those work. And I think I would use, rather than those, I mean, they will work, I would use shorty headers because they're readily available and they're cheap. But almost any modern exhaust manifold is a lot better than this older stuff, especially with big stuff like the Cadillac. The exhaust manifold had to be even tighter to the block and flatter and flow less because a lot of times because of packaging. And you know, for that motor, they weren't trying to rev the thing out, so that only needed to make power up to 4,000 RPM or something. Terra Firma, you can get the same power with small twins or a single. Usually that's just packaging. Scuba Steve, it doesn't matter what dyno you test it on, whether it's a Mustang or a Dyno Jet or a Superflow or hub dyno, whatever it is. You're only looking for a delta. So you put it on there and run it, and it does this, and then you make a change, and then it does this. It doesn't matter what that number is. It doesn't matter what that number is compared to another dyno. None of that makes any difference. You're just looking for a delta change. Dynos can be set to read whatever the guy running it wants to. That's actually a lot harder than you think. Gunther, this is a good question. It's something I want to do, and I've mentioned this before. Speaking of other guys, have you ever done any work with the 80s Crossfire 305s or 350s? Curious as to the power potential. I found one of those at a wrecking yard, and it's been a few months now, but I do want to do something with those. The factory computer and stuff is going to be problematic, so we're not going to use that. And then what you'll run into with that is the openings, the throttle blades themselves, will be limiting, and so will the fuel flow potential of those setups. Now you could put the you know, people have been for years been putting the big block truck ones on there, and that's a little bit better. Ultimately, you're going to need more flow and more fuel. So that's going to be a redesign of the top. I think the manifold itself, the Crossfire manifold itself, actually can be made to work pretty well. We would just need to get more airflow to it. So my idea would be to put 2 4-barrel carburetors on it, if that will work. And if not, make it a port injection with big throttle openings. Have you ever tested MPG or port plates for the 351 Cleveland? No, I talked to the guys at MPG about doing that, and I kind of would like to test that as well and find out if what the port plates actually do. I mean, I've read lots of things on them, but I've never seen an actual direct back-to-back test on it. And for the Evan, Aaron, I guess, had asked you about the getting credentials. One thing I heard somebody did was you can just make up a shop, and then you're a shop, and then you go there and get credentials, send it in based on your shop, send them a business card and that kind of stuff, and you can get that happen. You can make that happen. The advantage of a load-bearing dyno, Superflow, Dyno Dynamics, Pro Hubs, you can do load testing. Mustang and Dyno Jet are inertia dynos. That's incorrect. My Dyno Jet also had load capability, and lots of the other ones do too. And I don't know that that's an advantage or a disadvantage. Most of the things that people are running are an inertia run anyway. And anybody that's doing tuning on a loaded dyno, you normally have to go out and do that out on the street anyways. But a lot of guys like that. Do you have any experience with vintage Mercedes 4.5 liters, like a 450 SL? I don't. I did rebuild a 230 SL, but that's the inline 6-cylinder that Nissan eventually copied to make their Z engine. Admiral Richard, I've been told, early HO47 Dodge motors make more power than 5.7 Hemis. I don't think that that's accurate, but what's more reliable, journal bearing or ball bearing? I don't know. I don't do longevity tests, so it'd be hard to tell. Evan, are you still hanging around? If you are, let me know what you're thinking in terms of doing a road trip, and then also what we need to do to the motor in that wagon to do some testing with it to make it better. Keto, the airflow research heads are not an open or closed chamber because that's a factory deal. Just look at the chamber size. So Evan, what did your project stalker do? How fast did that thing run? I did some Gunther. I did some modifications on an '84 Corvette that I didn't do it. My roommate Harold had one, and he removed the swirl vanes, put a K&N in it, put long tube headers on it, a different exhaust, and they changed the fuel pressure, I think, so maybe an adjustable regulator, and that thing would go like 143 or 144 miles an hour, and then when he did that stuff, it would go 150. Taking the swirl vanes out seemed to stop hurt throttle response a bit, but it did help it make power. So Project Stalker went 1065 at 123. Nice. And that was with a stock motor, right? Okay, so it was in Cobra trim. Okay, 65 millimeter Cobra intake, unported GT40 iron head, stock valves, stock lift cam. Could you run the roller rockers on it too, Evan? That combination made 400 wheel horsepower. That was a really good one. Wow. I remember lots of guys struggling to get 300 wheel horsepower out of something like that. Because I think we ran a stock 5-liter. It was about 200 at the tire, and maybe a little less than that. I would like to see some Mercedes engines on the dyno as well, because I think that they have a lot of cool ones. I always wanted the big sedan that has the twin turbo V12 in it. Oh yeah, Evan, that's optimized conditions. That's all deal. But still, you did the deal. I mean, 1065. That's even in 50-degree heat, sea level, track, heated oil, iced intake. Probably a really good track surface. What did that thing 60 foot at? I know, Campy, you guys did. I remember commenting on all of the testing that you guys would do back there at Englishtown and stuff. I think that the vehicle design, I think the most popular one has to be an LS V8 swap. So Evan, you ran a 138, 60 foot time. That's pretty good. And what did you guys do to what was done to the suspension on it? We broke a lot of stuff, especially those T5s. Yeah, but when you're trying to get everything out of it, that's what you do. Because didn't you guys, Evan, run 10s in the Ford GT with Was it Coletti that was out there when you guys did that? And I did, if I remember right, did you guys, we heard some 8.8s, I would imagine, yeah. So Morosa front springs, QA dampers, lots of rear gear. Did you guys get rid of the upper control arms? This is perfect. Evan, yes, Coletti said if we didn't run 10s, he would light the car on fire with me in it. A little bit of incentive there, huh? Uh-oh, you just found a mouse skeleton in your car? Project's taking too long? That's a pretty good indication. Stock rear suspension. Oh, for the rules. Okay. So stock bushings and all that stuff too that you had to have? Kevin's in the house. Yeah, but Campy, when you guys were hurting those 8.8s, did you guys see daylight under the front tire? Coletti minute too. I would imagine. That's very cool. Aftermarket stuff and stock location. Okay. So is that no front sway bar? Why is it the Mustang T5 is easier to brake, but the BorgWarner T5 and a Nissan isn't as fragile? One's a V6 and one's a V8, so the V6 probably has a lot less torque. So Evan, it only took you 10 years to work that combination out? It takes a long time to get everything dialed in. No front bar, an aftermarket rear bar. Okay. I'm surprised it had an aftermarket rear bar, but that might help the thing plant evenly, I guess. So Gunther, your Crossfire made 150 wheel horsepower. Well, they were only rated at 205. At least the 350 in the Corvette was. If it was a 305, I was being a whole bunch less. Aaron, you have a fully ported set of excuse me, aluminum heads on that Magnum. Stock push rod location. Oh, so you got into Flow 310. That's a lot. So does that mean you want to port the set that I have? Because the guys from Speedmaster are going to get me a set. Racers. So somebody throws up their 60-foot time. Well, I've been a 125 60-foot with just an anti-roll bar in the front and stock upper and lower control arms and yada, yada, yada. Have you ever done any testing boosting pre-Magnum 5-tooth throttle body hydraulic roller cam motors? I haven't. I just only found out about those recently that they made the EFI versions of basically the LA motor. Keita, if you're trying to make 800 horsepower at 496, you're gonna need a really big cam and lots of compression and a really good set of cylinder heads and a ton of RAM and all kinds of stuff. Yes, everybody, don't forget to subscribe to Rev and Evan and Muscle Car Campy on your way out. Shameless plug. No, you got to do it, man. All right, Camp, you got to check out, man. It was good talking to you guys. Let's see. I have a couple of original owner videos. Ooh, 340/70 CUDA. Nice. And a Z28. Very, very cool. Campy, I'm an original 5-liter Mustang owner. You'll be happy to know. I still have my 1988 5-liter LX Notch. And I'm the original owner. And no, it hasn't gone 200 yet. So Casey, you can get 310 CFM on a VW head if you combine the intake and exhaust ports together. That makes life easier, right? All right, Evan, man. Thanks for coming by. I'm excited about seeing more stuff on the wagon. Yes, it is a notch, and I bought it in November of '87. I'll do a video of it. Nice. I'll have to come drive it back and see you, right? The easy thing would be for me to throw an LS in it, and we would go 200 right away. Yeah, Evan and Cappy, thank you guys for showing up, man. Scuba Steve, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what plenum you're talking about. AFR 305s are probably not going to support 800 horsepower. You need a much bigger head for that. Stripped out LX 5-liter with slicks gets daylight in her one tire. Is it a back tire? I hope not. Credit card wheelies. That counts. If you can slide the card under it, that's daylight, right? You don't actually have to see it. So Casey, did you blow the welds on it? On your intake? Yeah, if you put boost to it, it will definitely make 800, or just like a 200 shot or something would do it. Okay, guys, one more question. I got to get going. Also, I want to thank Evan and Campy. I wish I could spend more time with those guys and sit down and eat and have drinks. That would be awesome. I really should try to go back to PRI. I didn't go to SEMA, and MPMC is online, so I need to do that. And because I didn't do that last year, that would be fun. But I'm really excited about the possibility of doing a road trip with those guys together for that long. We're going to be like trying to kill each other. It would be awesome. Twin turbos would be easy. It'd be easy to make like lots more than that. So depending on how much power you want, look at the twin turbos we ran on the big block. That's like 2,000 horsepower with a turbo. Two GT45s would get you to 14 or 1,500, and they're really cheap. We need a stock short block Coyote. I do want to do a big bang on a Gen 3 Coyote. I do want to do a Crossfire video. I really like those. trying to rewire taillights on a triaxle gooseneck trailer, but liking the conversation. That's good. As long as you get some sort of light back there when the police are behind you, that's really all you need. Yes, everybody hit the like button. Okay, one more question. I got to get going, guys. So much fun. Big Bang 4-liter single overhead cam. Not that high on the list. Please do a Gen 3. A Gen 3 what? A Gen 3 LS? Done lots of those. I did 3 of those. 4853 and a 6.0. Oh, a Gen 3 Coyote. Okay, Robert, my bad. We need to Big Bang all 3 Coyotes. Sure. If you just throw all of those engines at me, that would be awesome. Or I'm going to have to come in here and raise money from you guys to be able to buy Coyote engines. That's the problem, is they're not cheap. Even if I were to get a truck one and reconfigure it, but I don't really want to do that. I want to actually do a Mustang Coyote version, and they're not cheap. A $2 V6 12 port. A Big Bang LSA. A Big Bang LS9 would be even more impressive. It'd make 1 million horsepower. Ford 5.0. So you want to buy me a stripped Mustang? VS Racing 8082. I'm not that familiar with all of the things that they offer, but Byron's a really good guy, and the VS Racing has a lot of stuff. So just talk to the guys over there, and he'll hook you up with the right turbo. It's supposed to be 4.2. Okay. Big Bang V10. I don't know if I want to do a Big Bang on one of those, but I do want to do something with them. Big Bang list. Coyote 4.7, 4.6 Ford, Gen 5 LS, of course a 5.4. Was there a Big Bang V10 there? Ford 5.0. Oh, like a real stripper. I don't really need that. My wife is like 17 different kinds of awesome and super lovely. A Big Bang Jaguar V12. See those in the wrecking yard all the time. I have seen some Jaguars in the thing. The odds of me finding one that works and runs in the wrecking yard on a Jaguar, I think it might be a little slim. Okay, 669 Garage, you get the last question, and his question is: anybody running an E303 cam? I'm not. Right now, I have run them lots and lots of times, and they work very well. I don't. What are you trying to do, Morty? Oh, a Big Bang. Okay, guys, I got to get going. Thank you all for showing up. And again, big shout out to Evan and Campy for showing up. That was awesome. And when I get back, we tried to hook up so that we could get, basically voiceover. So all of at least Campy and Evan and I could all talk, which would be cool. And then we could get conversations we're going, and you guys could ask questions, and then we could talk about that. And pretty soon here, I'm going to try to figure out how to do, dual screen interviews and all that stuff. So try to, bring my channel up to the next level. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will see you all tomorrow.